GravaStar, a portmanteau meaning gravitational vacuum star, is an object only hypothesized in astrophysics. An astrophysical object with the same mass and gravitational pull as a black hole, but is made of exotic matter. This is the GravaStar M1 Pro, a magnesium alloy shell mouse with a distinct aesthetic. Released on January 1st of 2024, the GravaStar Mercury M1 Pro is a mouse straight from the art of H.R. Geiger. The GravaStar Mercury M1 Pro is marketed as a sci-fi gaming mouse, and for $100 US, you get 4K capable polling, a 26K DPI sensor, 6 programmable buttons, and most noticeably a magnesium alloy shell. Accruing only a total of 44 reviews on Amazon, GravaStar is probably a brand you haven't heard of, and the M1 Pro is probably a mouse you haven't used. Today we'll find out. Welcome to the Rage Academy. If you're new here, my name is Patrick, and we regularly look at weird, interesting, and new gaming tech to find out if it's worth your money. And oh boy, is this an interesting one. Before we get into the unboxing, for transparency, this is my standard disclaimer. GravaStar sent me this mouse to review, but they have no editorial control over my content. Everything you're about to hear are my own thoughts and opinions. Personally, I find the be cool, play it text on the side and everywhere to be a little bit cringy. I'm not sure if marketing forgot, but this is a magnesium alloy shell mouse, yet it only makes one appearance on the box, but it's plastered all over their online marketing. It's one of the more interesting features of the mouse, in my opinion. They should replace the be cool, play it text with magnesium alloy shell or metal mouse or something along those lines to better inform customers. Plus, I just think it'll work better. Inside the box, we'll find the USB Type-C to USB Type-A cable, a USB Type-C to USB Type-A extender, the 2.4 GHz 1K polling wireless dongle. We'll also find extra PTFE skates. Thank you for including these, GravaStar. This honestly should really be standard practice at this point in the industry, and I love that you guys are doing this. We find rubberized grips and the M1 Pro mouse. This mouse does have a little dongle holder. Did you just say little dongle holder? Why would you do that? Quick, say something. So you can plug your dongle into the mouse for travel or storage. Now, obviously, the first thing to catch your eye is the cyberpunk-inspired look of the mouse, and it comes in 2 different flavors. There's the gunmetal gray option, which is what we have here today, and the relict misty white version. Part of me wishes they sent the relict mouse my way. Being a guitarist, there's a soft spot in my heart for old beat-up looking things. Like your mom. One of the big things I've seen with the marketing of this mouse is it keeps your hands cool due to the Swiss cheese mouse shell. This might be true if you're someone who likes to make sure your entire hand is making contact with the mouse, but as somebody with hands that don't constantly leak sweat, and as somebody who usually claw grips a mouse, I found this statement to be unfounded. I haven't experienced that. Is this a real complaint people have? Guys, is your mouse not cooling your hand properly? Let me know in the comments. I will say, if your home runs a little cooler, and I know at least a few of you live in a chilly basement, then warming up the mouse may actually be a thing for you to consider. If you've ever touched cool metal, imagine that every time you touch the mouse to start your gaming sessions. Yeah, it's not so great. For my gaming experience, the Mercury M1 Pro performed as well as any other PAW 3395 mouse. The only thing holding it back, in my opinion, is the weight. Other 3395 mice range from 40-ish grams and up, so this guy clocking in at 88 grams is on the heavier side of gaming mice that we've recently reviewed. The mouse is symmetrical with no ergo humps. The hump of the mouse starts in the middle, and I would classify this as a comfortable shape. It really fits well in my hands. I find the M1 and M2 paddles to be a little small. It sort of forces your hand to be closer to the front portion of the mouse. This is one of the only gaming mice I've seen this year that supports both Bluetooth and a 2.4 GHz dongle. You should be able to sync it to any Bluetooth capable device, like a laptop or anything like that. This isn't a necessary feature for me personally, but it is nice to have. One of the coolest things to me is how they engineered the internals of this mouse. Now, in case you're new here, I like taking things apart to see how they work and to make sure brands are using the quality parts they claim to. This mouse probably had more screws than any other mouse I've disassembled this year combined. There's seriously so many. I want to say it had something like 16 different screws to take the whole thing apart. For reference, the Razer Death Adder, that has 3. That's 3 screws. This had 16. Once I had the metal shell taken off, all the components were located inside this secondary shell. This is where the RGB comes from. Yes, this has RGB. I know that's like mandatory for some of you guys, but it has RGB. Inside the secondary shell, the PCB daughter board and the battery are all neatly stacked inside. Speaking of the battery, GravaStar claims 200 hours Bluetooth and 146 hours over the 2.4 gigahertz wireless. From my experience, I'm sure these numbers are if you have the RGB modes disabled and you're not running the mouse at the 4K polling rate. RGB and 4K will probably bring these numbers closer to like 40 or 50 hours, and that's being generous, so keep that in mind if you like RGB and 4K. If you did want to run the mouse at 4K to be the ultimate grass avoiding gamer, the 4K dongle is sold separately for $25, and that's about the market price for the additional 4K dongles. On the PCB, we can see the PAW 3395 sensor, so we know we're getting what we've been advertised. I've said this in other reviews, but again, it's not particularly special that this mouse has the PAW 3395. There's a bunch of other mice on the market currently using it. That being said, it is a solid sensor and has worked very reliably for me across the board on a lot of different mice. The switches are run-of-the-mill Omron Blue Point 50 million clicks. For the $100 price tag, I would have really liked to see optical switches, but since they're mechanical, I have to say these aren't my favorite mechanical switches. I've had mice that use these before and have failed long before the 50 million click mark, so I might be biased against these. I would have liked to see something by Kale or Juano, but that's just my preference. Everybody's different. There's no wrong answers, guys. And speaking of switches, in case you're curious, they sound like this. If you use one mouse software, you've used them all at this point. They're all very similar, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this. But you can rebind all 6 buttons. You can set off your lift-off distance, your DPI settings. You can make macros. You can do angle snapping. You can pretty much do anything you'd expect to do in mouse software. Some of the issues I have is how the brand really presents itself. It's not necessarily with the mouse itself. So let me just take a second to explain. First, if you go to their website, on the mouse sale page, you'll see they proudly display featured on before any of the important information about the mouse. They list Forbes, Tech Radar, Digital Trends, and What Hi-Fi. None of these are clickable links, so in order to find out if the product was actually featured with these publications, I had to do a little bit of research. When we go to the Forbes website, you can see they reviewed other GravaStar products, but the M1, M1 Pro, and M2 do not show up in any of the search results. Let's move on to Tech Radar. When we go to Google and search for Tech Radar GravaStar, you'll see the mouse doesn't show up again. Even stranger, when you go to the Tech Radar website, the only items they reviewed are the earbuds, not any mice. Are you starting to notice a little bit of a trend here? And that's why I'm so concerned. I'll save you the time. Digital Trends and What Hi-Fi also have not reviewed any of the mice from GravaStar. I find this all to be very misleading. The way it's displayed on the GravaStar website makes it seem like their mice have been featured on these different publications when 10 seconds of researching will show you that they haven't. Giving GravaStar the benefit of the doubt here, this could just be a banner that's associated with every sale page on their website, and they may not be aware that they're misrepresenting their own products. So GravaStar, here's your chance to fix it. Please only list the featured on for products that actually have been featured on the other publications. I understand this could just be a web issue. You may not be aware of it, but consider yourself made aware. It can be incredibly misleading and unethical to put this under all your products. Again, I'm giving you guys the benefit of the doubt here because you have a super cool mouse. I mean, look at it. This thing's freaking awesome. So please make the changes so your customers aren't misled. My next complaint isn't directly about GravaStar, but more so about how modern guerrilla marketing works. Just because somebody sends me something does not guarantee I'll give the product a good grade or not talk about issues I've found with the brand. Just an FYI for anybody watching. On TikTok, it's clear that the other product reviewers were also sent this mouse to review.
It weighs 88 grams while the super light weighs 63, which helps you have more stable aim compared to an uncontrollable lightweight mouse.
None of these product reviewers ever disclose whether they received the product at no cost or purchased it with their own money. Some straight up lied about the mouse. Like, listen to this one asshole straight up make up things and lie to his audience about the cost of the mouse to make it sound like a better deal.
This is what all the pros use, and they do not want you to know about it. The M2 literally used to be $300 or $400. Now you can get it for like a fraction of that price.
Now, obviously, GravaStar can only control this up to a certain extent, but I'm pretty sure they didn't do much marketing research on who was being given their product to review. The sad part is, and I'm gonna get real close here, you don't need to work with those lying mouse bros on TikTok. Look at this thing. I had my nitpicks, sure, but at the end of all of it, you're selling a very unique gaming mouse for a fair price, considering the metal shell. I know you guys are super proud of this thing, and you should be. I had a blast using it and reviewing it. It's clear you have a dedicated team of passionate artists and engineers crafting your uniquely themed tech. I think this stuff is really cool. But let's update your online store so consumers aren't misled into thinking the mouse was featured on other publications when it wasn't. Well, just straight up wasn't. I think the aesthetic for this thing is awesome, and it works pretty well for gaming. If you wanted this mouse just for the aesthetic to spice up your office life, then I think that's fair. You're covered there. I think the engineering behind putting the PCB together is awesome. That is truly a feat in and of itself. There's a lot of things to like about this mouse. You have a great product, but you do have to work on some things. If you're the type of person who appreciates this type of investigative product review, consider subscribing. As always, I hope you learned something. And until next time, GG.